what do you think is the best way to lower costs for families?
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. First of all, you just have to lower inflation more broadly. That's number one. Number two, you have to go after the hospital lobby, where the hospitals are gouging prices significantly. Number three, this is why I'm wearing the Make America Healthy shirt. We have to try to get at the root cause, which is the food that we are feeding ourselves and our kids. We have to get to the fact that we are an increasingly sedentary country. We aren't walking enough. We're not exercising enough. And healthcare costs are exploding because we don't actually address the root cause 20 or 30 years prior.
How do we take on those huge food companies?
Well, the first thing is we should have a real conversation about banning pesticides in when we're making our food. Ultra processed food should not be on the FDA recommended food pyramid. Right. This is why I love Bobby Kennedy coming and joining teams with Donald Trump, is that it's his life mission to make America healthier. We have a chronic disease epidemic. Half of all America's kids are chronically obese or overweight. In Japan, it is 3%. It's not because our kids are lazier. It's because we are actively poisoning our kids with food from big ag that we're spraying with all these pesticides, these chemicals. And if you look at the ingredient list of just a Lunchables box, we are basically giving kids the worst thing possible for their metabolism, for their endocrinology. So that I'm more interested in the healthcare conversation that tries to make sure that a 12-year-old doesn't have to get on Ozempic by the time they're 18 years old. And just so you know, they're giving pediatric Ozempic now for 12 and 13-year-olds. They are now treating obesity as a genetic disorder that you cannot do anything about, and they just want a 12-year-old to now have to take a shot every week to try to curb their obesity, which has all other sorts of very, very negative health implications. Every day, potentially, right? And so how do we solve that? Well, my personal crusade, we have to blow up the food pyramid, that we have way too many carbohydrates in our diet, not enough healthy fats, and not enough protein. Whoever made that was obviously bought by the big ag companies, and you should just say, I'm not going to have any more high fructose corn syrup, I'm not going to have any more processed sugars, and if there are ingredients I can't pronounce, I should resist it. And in the ideal, we should have a government that promotes the question, did God make it or did man make it? Have more foods every day that God made, more so than what man made, and you'll be a lot healthier because of it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I get a hat?
Wear it on campus.
For a Republican Party that prides itself on personal responsibility, protecting the sentient unborn, and free markets, I was curious your thoughts on animal rights, just because the government subsidizes animal agriculture far more than fruits and vegetables and plant foods, which inhibits the free market and ends up slaughtering lots of animals. And animals are also sentient beings like the unborn. So I was curious your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, so the question is first, is an animal a human?
No.
Okay, so does it therefore have rights?
I mean, we already have rights for animals, for dogs, cats, and even for some
no,
farm
of course,
animals,
but do you get First Amendment protections for your dog? Can your dog own a firearm, right?
No.
No, of course not. So it's not the same thing as a human.
Yeah,
now,
I'm not saying
Now,
it is,
as
yeah.
a Christian, we're also not allowed to torture or to slaughter. That's in the Noahic covenant and repeatedly out the scriptures. We must be humane in our treatment of animals. But as far, I don't know where you're coming at from this perspective, but some people would say that animals and humans are on the same moral plane. I don't think that's what you're saying, right? However, there is a push, though, to say that we should no longer eat meat because it's bad for the life of animals. We should do what's best for human beings, first and foremost, and it's good for human beings to eat meat. It's good for human beings to be able to eat animals. It's good for human beings to not just eat like this synthetic fake meat that Bill Gates wants to make all day long. And so, yeah, where do I stand on animal rights? I mean, I don't think any living being should be tortured or should be cruelly treated. At the same time, we should always do what's best for human beings and human beings first. So, for example, when there's an environmental question, the question should first be, what is best for the human species, not what's best for, the trees or for the snake. Those things are important, but it's more important for humans. Does that answer your question? Or
In part is okay if I have a little follow-up.
Please, yeah.
I mean, in terms of what rights we give to animals, of course, we wouldn't give animals the right to drive a car or vote because it's not relevant to them. But the rights that would be relevant to them are basic negative rights, the right not to be mistreated or killed. And we already have that for cats and dogs, and even cruelty laws on farm animals.
Well, we're allowed to kill dogs. That's not true. We have kill shelters for dogs, right? We also kill dogs that bite their owners and dogs with rabies, right? So if a human being gets rabies, what do? We treat the human. If a dog gets rabies, unless there's like a miraculous treatment, which there usually isn't, right? So you're right. The negative rights, we do have rights to be able to, for better or for worse, because we do not treat dogs and cats as the same moral level, because we as human beings have a soul, we have reason, we have the ability to make sense of the natural world. Dogs do not, right? Dogs only have senses, they do not have reason. And so, for example, a dog cannot tell that it's a dog. Now, there's some disagreement about that, but we as human beings can make sense of the natural world. We are the speaking beings, to say differently. But no animal should be mistreated. But to say that animals are not allowed to be killed would be therefore an argument against meat, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And
no
I'm
lies
not saying
about
that's
it.
your
I'm
position.
arguing against.
Right. That's very unpopular, probably at UW-Madison, to get rid of bacon, right? So, I'm just guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up ultimately is these animals that we kill on factory farms. We kill them pigs in gas chambers. We ground up male chicks alive for the egg industry because only the female hens lay eggs. All these different things is because we view animals on not having enough rights to actually protect their livelihood. I'm making an argument that we shouldn't obviously give animals rights that aren't relevant to them.
For sure.